Welcome back as we continue with our first program of the new year. President Jacob Zuma delivered his State of the Nation address last Thursday, touching on a number of critical challenges facing the nation. The implementation of the National Development Plan, job creation for the youth, land restitution, education, as well as the fight against the abuse of women and children. The President announced that an agreement over the youth wage subsidy scheme could be signed by the end of this month. He said he expects this to happen when NEDLAC meets within weeks.
Just over a third of the population is under the age of 15. Our country, like many others, has a crisis of youth unemployment. Last May, I asked constituencies at NEDLAC to discuss youth employment incentives. I'm pleased that discussions have been concluded and that agreement has been reached on key principles. The parties will sign the accord later this month. The incentives will add to what government is already doing to empower the youth. State-owned enterprises provide apprentices and learnerships, and we urge that these be increased. We appeal to the private sector to absorb 11,000 FET graduates who are awaiting placements. The Department of Rural Development and Land Reform runs the National Rural Youth Service Corps, which has enrolled 11,740 young people in various training programs. The department is also planning 9 rural youth hubs per province, including in the 23 poorest districts in the country. We will also use the expanded public works program and the community work program to absorb young people. Working together, we will find a solution to youth unemployment.
With the nation commemorating 100 years since the Land Act of 1913, President Zuma admitted that government had learnt a valuable lesson in its failure to meet its land redistribution targets. Lessons that government will now use in a new strategy to speed up the process.
We must shorten the time it takes to finalize a claim. In this regard, government will now pursue the just and equitable principle for compensation as set out in the Constitution instead of the willing buyer, willing seller principle. Which forces the state to pay more for land than the actual value. Secondly, there are proposed mechanisms to the Restitution of Land Rights Act 1994 in order to provide for the reopening of the lodgement of restitution claims by people who missed the deadline of December 31st, 1998. Also to be explored are exceptions to the June 1913 cut-off date to accommodate claims by the descendants of the Khoi and San. As well as heritage sites and historical landmarks. Another key lesson is to provide adequate post-settlement support to new landowners so that land continues to be productive.
Opposition parties were less than impressed and red-carded President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address. In a joint media briefing on Friday, 8 opposition parties joined forces to challenge the ruling party during this parliamentary session. They are of the view that the president has failed to instill confidence. They say it was all talk and no action.
We stand together today as opposition parties to express our disappointment in President Zuma's 2013 State of the Nation address. President Zuma needed to provide South Africans with an inspiring vision for the future, a realistic plan to get us there, and clear, determinable deadlines to which he could be held to account. We got none of this last night. We were promised action, but we received more of the same broken promises. It is clear that Jacob Zuma is not South Africa's action man. He had an opportunity to give us an indication of his plans to create more jobs for young South Africans, but instead he paid lip service to this. He rehashed old plans on infrastructure. He was misleading on the stability of the mining sector, and he didn't provide any new ideas on a way forward to make sure that we have growth in our economy. South Africans, after the tragic and violent murder of Anine Booysen, wanted to hear how the criminal justice system in our country is going to be improved to make sure that the violence facing many of our South African citizens, especially women and children, is going to be finally put to an end. But we received no plans to improve policing or ensure that there are more specialized detectives to deal with these crimes. They wanted to hear that corruption at all levels of government, including within the executive, would be dealt with severely. But instead we heard nothing in the way of a concerted government strategy. And in fact, the president's decision to spend, or allow his government to spend, 206 million rand upgrading his home in Nkandla with public money makes it very difficult for South Africans to take his pledges on corruption seriously. Why didn't he commit to make the Nkandla report from Public Works public? Will he announce that he's going to cease the building at his residence until the public protector releases her report? As long as the abuse of public money on the president's behalf remains unanswered for, it's going to remain the symbol of corruption in South Africa and in this presidency.
Beyond this, South Africans wanted to hear about how government was going to act on the question of education. Instead, we had, rather than correct what is going on, we had the president praise what's been happening in education. Indeed, applauding education outcomes in Gauteng at a time when matriculants in Gauteng were passed at 33% rather than 60% or 50%. Matriculants passed at 33%, which meant that they didn't know 67% of what they should have known. Nothing about what action will be taken to reform the behavior of teachers which are negligent, accountability in classrooms or improving the quality of education, nothing of the sort, nothing that gave us assurance that we will begin to see a return to acceptable national and international standards.
We unfortunately have to leave it right there. Our time is up. But please do join us again tomorrow morning for highlights of the State of the Nation debate in the National Assembly. Until then, have a good day.